Oh, the joys of fevers. When your room is about the temperature of a nicely lit sauna in the Sahara Desert, but your body feels like it's unwillingly been plunged into a frigid lake, like those people do the polar bear plunge things. Yes, that. Just, unwillingly. Why the heck do our bodies decide that this is the way to fight things? Well, this will be an interesting thing to learn about.
Mammals are endothermic, meaning they can regulate their internal body temperature. Animals such as reptiles are exothermic, meaning their body temperature is regulated by the ambient temperature. This is why lizards and snakes sun themselves on sunny rocks on cool days and burrow into the cool earth on hot days. Humans and other mammals can survive in many different environments. However, humans require a very narrow, very specific temperature range to survive. While we can live in extreme cold and extreme heat, even temperatures of negative 80 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 62.2 degrees Celsius, and 130 degrees Fahrenheit, 54.4 degrees Celsius, can only be tolerated thanks to insulated jackets and air conditioners. Without protection, the human body would quickly overheat or freeze. While many human ailments such as headaches and stomach aches are difficult to pinpoint and explain because only the sufferer can describe them, if you have a fever, anyone can tell just by touching you. More than likely, Maddy's favorite caveman, Og, suffered from fevers. Ancient Egyptians thought that fevers were normal, but supernatural, possibly even evil, so rituals were used to extract the evil from the person. The ancient Greeks went in the opposite direction. They believed that fever was useful for curing most illnesses, so they would induce it as a form of medicine.
Well, they're not wrong.
They're not wrong, but they used it for everything.
Hey, it sounds better than bloodletting.
That is true. Well, no, I'm not sure I want either one, because I'm sure that, I don't know, you're a hot springs girl, right? You like a good hot springs?
Yes.
See, I don't like hot springs. I don't want to be heated up for any reason. I'm a cold weather person.
Jen, you don't want to be wet for any reason.
That is true, too. But even so, saunas, hot springs, sweat lodges, these all just sound like torture devices to me.
I mean, a lot of things sound like torture devices to you.
No, the heat.
You run in it, 5Ks usually.
That's a good point, but I don't like the heat part of it. I like to run when it's like 40 degrees out. That's like perfect running temperature.
Sometimes I'm unsure of what to think about you.
The idea that heat can help people be healthier has existed in many cultures. Sweat lodges, saunas, and bathhouses all promote health by heat. Cold was treated differently by ancient people. While some ancient Greeks noticed that a cool body could survive longer in certain medical procedures, implying that metabolism was slowing, for the most part, we had no idea what to do for a person who became extremely cold. We've all seen pictures and cartoons of St. Bernards bringing a barrel of brandy to freezing mountain climbers. This is a myth, but a common remedy was to give the shivering person alcohol, although there was no dog involved. This is a bad idea because while it feels warm at first, alcohol can reduce or delay the shivering process, which is the body's way of warming itself. Ask anyone and they will tell you that 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius, is the normal temperature of humans. But how do we know that? And is it even true? It is somewhat true. This number was not picked randomly. It was the result of the work of Carl Wunderlich.
Wait, not Santiago, the guy who kept sticking things into people?
Santorio. No. Oh, this is the guy who was sticking things into people. Santorio did it with a mouthpiece. We're going to learn about Carl Wunderlich next.
Did he do it with the butt piece?
No, he didn't use their armpits.
Ah, such a choice.
It was the result of the work of Carl Wunderlich, the father of clinical thermometry. Karl Reinhold August Wunderlich was born on August 4, 1815, in what is today Germany, then the Kingdom of Württemberg. His father was a government physician, and Karl grew up in a modest home. When he was 9, his father died. His French mother hoped that he would go into the clergy, but Karl followed in his father's footsteps. Karl went to medical college at the age of 18 in 1833. He wanted to have as broad a medical foundation as possible and spent time studying in Paris and Vienna. He graduated in 1837 and began his career as an assistant physician at various hospitals. In 1840, he became a lecturer at his alma mater, and 10 years later, in 1850, He became a full professor of medicine at the University of Leipzig, a top-level school in Germany. He also took on the role of chief of medicine at the university's medical clinic.
Good for him.
I know, right? Good thing he didn't go into the clergy.
I also appreciate how, unlike most of the people we've talked about, he seems to have focused on one thing. Everyone else, let's do glass blowing. Let's do this. Let's do that. This guy's just like, I'm going to do medicine. He did branches, it sounds like, that connected to medicine. But it looks like he dived straight into what he wanted.
Yes, and I didn't talk about this too much, but he actually was instrumental on getting students to have more clinical time, because apparently until then it was a lot of book reading and not a lot of hands-on instruction.
Oh, that would be horrible. Could you imagine? Not as much hands-on instruction. Here's the body. I've read about this. I did not know the heart was actually placed here. Meanwhile, the person who's not fully unconscious yet...
And it helped that his university actually had a hospital attached to it so that they had patients they could go and see. But yeah, that was kind of his thing. He wrote many papers and contributed to medical science in many ways, but he is best known for his research on human body temperature. Over the course of 15 years, he recorded more than 1 million temperatures from about 25,000 patients. This is quite a feat. But it is even more amazing because he used a foot-long thermometer that had to stay in the patient's armpit for 20 minutes to obtain an accurate reading. We have learned a lot about thermometers in this series. What thermometer did Carl use, and how do we know? He used a glass mercury thermometer with a centigrade scale. Remember that we didn't start calling this scale Celsius until the 1960s. This thermometer is now part of a collection at the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. This museum is dedicated to the history of medicine, and some exhibits are not for the faint of heart. I really want to go because I find the history of patient care, and sometimes the lack thereof, fascinating. Plus, it would be cool to see Carl's thermometer.
But it would also give you nightmares.
Oh, probably, but it would still be really fun. With all this data, Carl was able to establish what temperature was normal for humans and what could be considered a fever. He was one of the first physicians to declare that fever was a symptom of disease, but not a disease itself. While he found that a normal human temperature was 37 degrees Celsius, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, he also learned that people could have different temperatures at different times of the day. Gender, age, and health could also affect a person's normal temperature. Science is only as good as the tools available, and it turns out that when Carl's thermometer was tested in 1992, it was found to be approximately 3 degrees Fahrenheit, 1.5 degrees Celsius, too high. So the number we should have been taught in school was 95.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 35.5 degrees centigrade. However, the overall number does not matter, because humans are not all the same. That is why today doctors feel that 97 degrees Fahrenheit, 31.6 degrees Celsius to 99 degrees Fahrenheit, 37.2 degrees Celsius, is healthy. Even though his thermometer was not perfectly calibrated, it was at the time an amazing body of work. I want to repeat this part. He used a thermometer that did not self-register, which meant the patient had to sit still for 20 minutes with a foot-long thermometer in their arm.
I would like to point out nobody likes sitting longer than 5 minutes if they don't have to.
Right, with no YouTube, no videos, probably they weren't necessarily literate, so no book to read. Just sit there.
I mean, as Jen can very nicely tell you, I'm not even sitting still currently.
No, you are not. There are 3 ways to take a person's temperature: orally, rectally, or on the skin. I'm sorry to say that the most accurate way is rectally, not most people's first choice. When doctors talk about temperature being in the danger zone, they mean those taken rectally. The least accurate way is on the skin, which might be why Carl's measurements were off compared to modern readings. Fever is not a disease itself, but a symptom of many diseases, and one of the top reasons people seek medical attention. Often a fever is a way your immune system fights off an infection, but it can also be caused by inflammation or trauma. This is a simple way to talk about a fever because the brain, nervous system, immune system, and other parts of the body can trigger it. For this reason, fever can have many causes, and identifying the source of the fever can reveal the reason for it. I have included a link in the notes to a Science Direct article. It is full of medical jargon, but very thorough on the topic of fevers. It lists 69 different fevers and their symptoms, and I am sure there are more. I won't list them all here, but I suggest checking out the article.
Jen, why am I reading on the list the word beaver fever? Why does that sound like an 80s disco dance? Everyone get ready for the beaver fever!
That's why I had to put it on the list, Maddie, because I knew you'd start singing. Here is just a sample of fevers you don't want. If you are squeamish, you may want to jump ahead. Beaver fever, a parasitic disease with chronic diarrhea. Ebola hemorrhagic fever. Along with rashes and diarrhea, you bleed from all your orifices. Rabbit fever, a potentially fatal infectious disease caused by the bacterium Francisella tularensis.
Okay, now that just sounds like a French designer.
Latin words very often sound fancy. Typhoid fever, also known as typhoid, is a common worldwide illness transmitted by the ingestion of food or water contaminated with the feces of an infected person, which contains the bacterium Salmonella typhi. Typhoid fever has been responsible for many epidemics in American history, but one of the most famous involved a woman named Mary Mellon. You may know her better as Typhoid Mary.
Isn't this the woman who got locked up on an island and then hired somebody to get her off the island because she wasn't showing any signs?
That's her. That's Typhoid Mary. Mary Mellon came to New York from Ireland in 1883 and worked as a cook in many households around the city. In the summer of 1906, she cooked for a wealthy banker and his family. By September, just 1 month after Mary was hired, 6 of the 11 household members had typhoid fever. George Sober, a sanitary engineer, was hired to figure out how the disease had spread. He linked all the illnesses back to Mary Mellon. This seemed odd because Mary had no symptoms. She denied the charge. However, George discovered that there had been typhoid cases in every house where she had worked. It turned out that Mary was asymptomatic, meaning that she had the disease inside her, but it did not make her sick or cause a fever. Instead, it lay dormant, and as she cooked and cleaned, it spread to other members of the household who were more vulnerable. This is where the story turns a little sad. George Sober wanted to collect samples from Mary, but rather than showing sympathy for a woman who just wanted to work, he followed her around the city and tried to collect them without her knowledge. This furtive behavior unnerved Mary, who still believed she was innocent. The evidence was stacked against her. By 1906, 3,000 New Yorkers had typhoid fever, including many members of the 8 different homes where Mary had worked. She was forced by the New York Department of Health to be tested, and indeed she was infected. For 2 years, she was held in quarantine on a small island until she hired a lawyer who set her free. The state said they would provide references for a job if she promised not to be a cook anymore. Mary still believed she was disease-free, even though test after test showed that she carried the bacteria that caused typhoid fever. She changed her name to Mary Brown and got a job as a cook at Sloan Maternity. Within 3 months of working there, she contaminated 25 doctors, nurses, and staff. 2 of them died. Mary thus earned the nickname Typhoid Mary and became the butt of jokes and cartoons, eventually becoming the definition of a disease carrier. She was once again placed in isolation on North Brother Island, where she lived by herself in a small cabin until she died in 1938. Mary lived at a time when typhoid fever was not curable. The vaccine was not available until 1911, and antibiotics were discovered in 1948. Today, people can be carriers of a variety of diseases, from tuberculosis to COVID-19, but as long as they get treatment, it is not a life sentence of isolation. None of us want to be known as Typhoid Mary. While a fever can be caused by your body fighting a disease, becoming extremely cold is something your body fights outright. Humans, for the most part, live in homeostasis, meaning we have a stable, non-changing regulatory system, including a body temperature that is always around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius. If our core gets cold, damage can occur at a cellular level, leading to frostbite, hypothermia, and even freezing to death. As you get colder, your blood vessels constrict, reducing blood flow to your skin to keep your core warmer. Areas such as fingers, toes, noses, and ears may continue to feel colder due to the reduced blood supply. Continued cold exposure may cause cells to freeze. This is frostbite. You may have numbness in the area and your skin could look waxy. Depending on how severe the frostbite is, rewarming can be just as dangerous. Blisters can form, and if the area is too damaged, gangrene could happen upon warming, leading to the need for amputation. Frostbite does not just happen to exposed areas. if you wear wet socks in your boots for a long time while outside in extreme cold, frostbite can set in. Even at temperatures as low as 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 15.5 degrees Celsius, you can get trench foot, which can cause numbness, swelling, leg cramps, and blisters.
And giant, slivers in your feet.
That sounds horrible.
Like your feet can crack open like the Grand Canyon.
Yes, they can, and no offense, I don't want to think about it. Wet feet lose heat 25 times faster than dry feet, so bring lots of socks if you plan to be outside in the cold and the wet. More dangerous than frostbite is hypothermia. From last week's episode, we know that people can live in extreme cold, but to survive, they must keep their bodies warm. Hypothermia occurs when the body is out of homeostasis. Once the body reaches 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Celsius, you begin to shiver uncontrollably. This is your body trying to keep you warm. However, if your internal temperature reaches 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees Celsius, you stop shivering, and your nose, lips, fingers, and other extremities begin to turn blue from reduced blood flow. Your brain also begins to shut down, and you may have slurred speech or stumble around. Because you have stopped shivering, you may think you are better, but the opposite is true. If your body continues to get colder, cellular damage will happen and eventually lead to death. Hypothermia is bad news, except when it saves your life. Since 1990, over a dozen people have been brought back to life after freezing to death. These people had no heart rate and were found in frozen ponds, snow-covered mountains, and even in the ocean. In every case, the person had flash frozen. Instead of hypothermia setting in gradually, they cooled down extremely quickly, causing their cellular structure to stop functioning without being damaged by the cold. This is why doctors say that you are declared dead when you are warm and dead, not cold and dead. In a medical setting, these people were slowly brought back to temp and brought back to life. Many of them had no brain injuries or other internal damage, although many did lose fingers or toes. This recovery is so amazing that doctors have been experimenting with deliberately flash freezing patients. By circulating a cold saline solution through a patient, the internal temperature can be rapidly reduced. The patient's hearts and lungs stop working, and blood flow constricts. In this state, doctors can perform surgery on the patient. So far, this has only been used on people with multiple gunshot wounds who would have died if not cooled down. However, the survival rate is impressive, with patients coming back to life. It can be weeks before any brain injuries are detected, but for the most part, the person is fine and much better than before the surgery.
This just sounds like the really expensive thing that people who have good amounts of money can do, like cryo-freezing themselves.
Cryotherapy, yes. Yeah, I didn't talk about a lot of cryotherapy because I didn't talk about saunas either, but yes, there is some evidence that says that cryotherapy is actually very helpful, but it's not all of it. Some people say it's not, so I didn't bring it up because it's kind of in contention, but a lot of people do cryotherapy. I'm not going into the freezing cold any more than I'm going into the boiling hot. I like my homeostasis just where it is. Being too hot or too cold without medical assistance can be dangerous to the human body, so do your best to stay in homeostasis. Please keep all your fingers and toes.
Now that that's all been covered, I am craving a hot drink and the need for several different pills to keep the colds away. It is currently cold and flu season, and I fear that I will have fallen. Though knowing my luck, Jen will go first. Jen always goes first. She's sticking her tongue out at me now. Hi, Jen! We look forward to seeing you guys in the next session. And stay healthy, all. Bye-bye.